Hi there, I'm Zoe, and in this session we're going to be looking at our spine and getting to know a little bit more about our spine and how it moves through Pilates. So through your spine you have 33 vertebrae, so in the top part of your spine, through your neck here you have 7 vertebrae. This is your cervical spine. From there, from the top part of your back to about the midway, you have your thoracic spine. So here there are 12 vertebrae, and then a little bit further down where you have that kind of arch in your spine is your lumbar spine, and there are 5 vertebrae here. A little bit further down then you've got your sacrum and your coccyx, but we want to start focusing on the cervical, thoracic and lumbar spine. I like to think of it as 7 a.m. breakfast, 12 p.m. lunch, and then 5 p.m. dinner or tea or whatever you'd like to call it. So we're just going to start off with our Pilates setup. So we want our feet to be about hip width apart, in line with the knees, in line with the hips. From here, we're just going to roll our shoulders up to our ears, back and down. And again, as we do that, we're going to inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and again, inhale, exhale. One more. Keep those shoulders down. From here, we're just going to place our index finger on the front of our, if you just play around, there's a bit of a bony bit on our hips there. We want to find that bony bit, and then just take your thumb round to the side. I want you to think about pushing the thumb down, scooping your tailbone, so the very bottom of the spine, so your sacrum and coccyx, your tailbone at the very bottom. You want to think about scooping it under, pulling the belly button back, and then we're going to tilt in the other direction. So we want to think about kind of sticking your bum out at the back, arching at the spine, and pushing that index finger into the front of the hips, and then we push the thumb back, scooping the tailbone under, and then tilting forwards, and we come back. So we're just going through our pelvic tilts here, helping us find our neutral spine. So that is our aim here. So we're just kind of over exaggerating these tilts. It might feel a bit strange if you've never done this before. If this hand placement isn't working, then maybe just place one hand on the front, kind of just below your belly button, or one on your lower back. You want to think about pushing that back hand down, scooping that tailbone under, and then we're just going to let the belly kind of come forwards and relax into that hand in front. And again, we go back, scooping under, and then tilting forwards. We want to find a point in between these two, so maybe starting to make that movement a little bit smaller and smaller each time, till we find a point where we're in the middle of both of those. So you might want to think more about drawing that tailbone straight down rather than scooping under. So if you notice here, I'm going to lift my arms up so you can see my spine. If I relax here, I have a bit of an extra curve in my lumbar spine, and my stomach kind of likes to come forwards a little bit. What we want to do, so those pelvic tilts, over exaggerating, we're coming under, scooping under, and then we're tilting forwards. Notice how my chest isn't moving as much. You might find that as you start to move, you're moving your chest. You want to try and keep that nice and still. So we're kind of over exaggerating those tilts, and then we want to try and make it smaller and smaller till we find a point in between the two. So your neutral spine. Just notice how if I relax, this is where my spine wants to be. If I actually want to control it and find my neutral spine, this is where I'll be. So just notice that slight change in that lumbar spine. We want to hold it there. From here, we want to imagine a zip at the very bottom of our pelvic floor, so down here. Think about your belly button. So imagine a zip almost like we're trying to get into a pair of tight jeans. We're zipping that belly button up. As we're zipping those trousers, the trousers up to the belly button, we're kind of squeezing in here, lifting up, lifting up, lifting up, lifting up, lifting up, all the way up to the belly button, still breathing. We're not holding our breath. Or imagine that you've come into freezing cold water. Imagine you're walking into the cold ocean. It's very, very cold. You start lifting up through that pelvic floor. This is us trying to engage and lift up 100%. Now, it's quite hard to hold it at 100% throughout the whole class. I just want you to get used to that sensation. From there, we're just going to come all the way back out. And still remember to be in that neutral spine. From here, we then want to be lifting up through the pelvic floor, zipping up, but we're only going to zip up halfway. Or imagine that you've come into that cold, freezing cold water, but we've only come up to about here. We haven't quite made it up to the belly button. We're just working 50% here. From there, I want you to remember these sensations, because it will really help when we start to move into different exercises. And I say lift up through that pelvic floor. You really want to think about zipping up. It's just going to help progress into certain different movements throughout Pilates. So we're at 50%. From there, we just want to unzip and undo a little bit more. And that's where we want to try and hold it. So we're in our neutral spine. We're just slightly lifting up through that pelvic floor. So we're just engaging it. We're not working it too hard. We're just engaging it enough so we can hold it throughout the class. From here, we're going to come round to the abdominals. And I want you to imagine, maybe close your eyes if you want to and just listen. I want you to imagine that you have got a belt. You're placing it around your waist and it's got 10 notches on it. We're trying to pull it all the way to the 10th notch, but it's going to be quite hard. It's going to be really, really tight. It's going to feel extremely tight around the waist. So just imagine you're really trying to pull that belt to the 10th notch, really squeezing in those abdominals. We're engaging them 100%. And then from here, I want you to release off completely. And then from there, we're going to start working around 50%. So we've got that belt back on. We're going to tighten that belt to the 5th notch. So we're not squeezing as much as we were before, but we are still squeezing quite a bit. I want you to remember these sensations, because when I say tighten that belt around the waist, this is what I want you to do. So we're engaging the abdominals 50% here. It's going to be quite hard to hold on to 50% as well as 100. So we want to start releasing off to the 3rd notch. And we want to hold it there. So we're not necessarily really squeezing the abdominals now. We're just kind of activating them. We know that they're there. So we have that belt around that 3rd notch, activating those abdominals. From here, we are going to come round to our lateral thoracic breathing. So hands around our rib cage, elbows down, keeping those shoulders down. As we inhale, we want to think about breathing out into the hands and exhale through the mouth. Rib cage comes back together. If you want to, maybe bring the fingers around slightly so they're almost touching, and you'll probably notice as you inhale, the fingers start to separate slightly. Exhale, fingers start to come back together. Inhale. We open, exhale. Notice how my hands are opening up. So we're breathing down into that diaphragm and the rib cages are opening out into our lateral thoracic breathing. So we want to be working deep into that breath rather than keeping it up in our chest and into our shoulders. So if you find that your hands stay where they are and you notice that your shoulders are coming up as you breathe in, exhale, your shoulders are coming down. You want to be working on trying to keep, maybe not worry too much about your hands here, maybe place your hands on the side of your rib cage around that waist. Push those elbows down as you breathe in. Exhale through the mouth. And again, inhale. Elbows down. Exhale. So from here, we're in our neutral spine, slightly lifting up through that pelvic floor. we have got that belt around our waist, and we've started to breathe into our lateral thoracic breathing, so working into that. From here, we're going to start working in our flexion spine, so working through flexion. When we're working through, anytime that our spine ends up in like a C curve, we are working flexion. So we want to come to the ends of our mat. We're going to have still want our feet in parallel, hip width apart, still nice alignment here. So we're in our neutral spine, slightly lifting up through the pelvic floor. We've got that belt around our waist, roll those shoulders up and back. We want to imagine that we have a plum or a tennis ball underneath our chin. So we don't want that chin to be dropping down. We don't want it sticking up. We want it nice and neutral. And then imagine you have a piece of string coming out the crown of your head, being pulled up towards the ceiling, so feeling nice and lengthened. From here we inhale, and then as we exhale, we are going to drop that chin, start to draw the crown of the head down to the mat, arms become nice and heavy. As we're rolling down, we want to imagine the belly button being pulled back towards the spine as we roll down, going as far as we can, and then slightly bending the knees, so we bring the knees back in line with the ankles. We then just slightly squeeze the glutes to bring the glutes and the hips back in line with the knees, and then we can start rolling up through the spine, stacking each vertebrae on top of each other, coming all the way up, head coming up last. And as we've come up and stacked all the way back up, we're back in our neutral spine, slightly lifting up through the pelvic floor. We've got that belt around our waist, plumb underneath that chin or tennis ball, and we go again. Inhale, exhale, we go down. We can just breathe normally as you start to roll down. Remember, pull that belly button back towards the spine as you draw the crown of the head down. Slightly bend the knees. We squeeze the glutes. We start to roll back up through the spine, stacking each vertebrae on top of each other, coming all the way back up. And again, inhale. Exhale, we go down. And then just breathing normally as we come down. From here, we're going to make our way all the way down to the mat. So we're just going to walk our hands out into a downward dog and just lower the knees. So we're just going through that downward dog, bringing the knees down. We'll talk about a downward dog in another video. From here, we just want to work through our flexion and extension of the spine. So lifting up and away from our shoulders. We want about a hip width. We want the knees hip width apart, shoulders over those wrists, and lifting up and away from those shoulders. Thinking about engaging that core. We've got that belt around our waist. Inhale. As we exhale, we're going to drop the belly down, looking ahead. Inhale. We're going to round the spine up towards the ceiling, looking between the thighs. This is our flexion, going into our extension as we exhale. Inhale. Into our flexion. Exhale. Into our extension. One more. Inhale. And exhale. Going back through neutral, hugging that belly button up towards the spine. From here, we're going to bring our legs around, and we're going to work with our flexion coming down. So we want our knees slightly bent. Imagine that you want about a fist width between the knees. So you want to make sure those knees are in line with the hips, in line with the ankles. Always sit up nice and tall. We inhale. As we exhale, we're going to round the spine. Just notice though how, still imagine that you've got that tennis ball underneath the chin. Just notice that my chin hasn't come all the way down. So we're not bringing it all the way down, and we're not sticking it up towards the ceiling. We want to protect. Remember what I said about the cervical spine? So it's that neck is still part of the spine. We want to try and keep a nice C curve all the way down. So inhale, exhale, we round the spine, coming off those sit bones. Inhale, we come back up. Exhale, rounding the spine. Remember what I said about lifting up through the pelvic floor. As you are rounding through the spine, we're just going to hold it here for a moment. I want you to think about that sensation when we were zipping up through the pelvic floor. So we really want to be lifting up, or imagine kind of that spine is coming round underneath and we're pulling up. And we come all the way back up. We're going to go all the way down this time. All the way down, keeping that spine rounded. And then we're going to start taking the shoulder blades down and then the head. So I'm just going to move forward slightly. As we come down, we're then going to walk the feet in. And we're just going to go through our pelvic tilts on the floor. So your hips here, find that bony bit. You also want to think about where your rib cage is. So it's just about 1.5 inches kind of above your belly button. So find your belly button, come up, and then either side here is going to be the very bottom part of your rib cage. You can normally touch your lower, the bottom of your rib cage and that bony part of your hip together. And you'll start to notice as you scoop the tailbone under and allow the back to melt into the mat, you'll probably notice that the hip bone and the rib cage start to draw a little bit closer together. And then as you start to tilt the pelvis forwards, arching at the spine, you'll probably find that there is a much bigger space between the rib cage and that hip bone. And again, scooping under, and you'll find that those fingers start to meet a little bit. Exhale. We tilt the pelvis forwards. So we're just over exaggerating our pelvic tilts here. Just make sure as you're scooping that tailbone under, allowing the back to melt into the mat, that you're not lifting your hips. And again, exhale, tilting forwards. And if you find that you can't reach your fingers and your thumb to your hip bone and your ribs, then just maybe place one on your rib cage and one hand on your hip, just maybe so you can just get a feel for where things are. You'll start to notice that they separate and that they start to come back together. From here, I want you to try and play around with these two movements and try and find a point in between the two, so finding our neutral spine. And then from there, I want you to think about drawing that belly button down towards the spine, and then we're wrapping that belt around our waist. So we've got a nice strong core, still slightly lifting up through that pelvic floor, but we're in our neutral spine. So from here, we're going to take the arms back behind us. As we inhale, we're going to start to lift the head. Notice how my chin doesn't come all the way down. We've still got that tennis ball underneath the chin. Inhale, we come up, we start to lift the shoulder blades. Exhale, we come down. Arms go all the way back. Inhale, we come up. Reaching forwards. Exhale, we come down. One more. Inhale up. Exhale down. As we come up, we're going to come all the way up this time. Inhale, we come up. Think about really lifting up through that pelvic floor, drawing that belly button back down. Inhale. We come all the way up. Okay, we're just going to go into our seated rotation of the spine. So we can sit cross-legged for this one, or legs out in front of us. So we're just going to place our fingertips together, thumb up by the chest, and you want either your, index finger underneath the chin or middle finger. And then from here, we want to be sitting up nice and tall. Still thinking about lifting up through that pelvic floor. We've got that belt around our waist. And we're just going to twist over to one side. And back through centre. And over to the other side. Back through centre. So from centre, we inhale. We twist on an exhale. Inhale. Exhale, we twist. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale, back through center. Okay, from here we're just going to slightly speed it up and increase that breathing pattern. So, not increase the breathing pattern, increase the movement with the breathing, with the breath. So, we're going to inhale from center. Exhale, we twist round to one side. Inhale, we come back through center. Exhale to the other side. Inhale, back through center. Exhale to the other side. Inhale, back through center. Last one, exhale. Inhale. And hands come down. From here, we're going to go into our lateral flexion, so our side bend. We're going to place one hand down. We inhale, we bring our other arm up towards the ceiling. We want to think about reaching up and then walking that hand out and side bend over. You might find that that elbow comes down. If not, if you're still here, that's absolutely fine. So you want to think about reaching that arm up and side bending over. You want to think about keeping that shoulder back rather than bringing it in front. So we want to keep that shoulder back and away from the ear. Reaching over, so almost reaching the fingers, but pulling that shoulder back at the same time. We come up and over on the other side. The arm comes all the way up, and we're going to take that side bend over, and we come back down. Inhale, we come up. Exhale, down. Other side. Inhale, up and over. Exhale. One more on each side. Inhale and over. Exhale. Down, last one. Inhale and over. Exhale. We come down. So essentially, Pilates is basically moving the spine and working the spine in all different directions. So I hope you've enjoyed this session about the spinal alignment, and I hope that you can use this and then apply it into other classes. So thank you for watching.